One. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Frenemies podcast. Joined, as always, by David Swor with his crazy Yankees hat. I am DJ Cox.
With a Phillies hat.
And so, yep, I went to Plano High School. That's where I played high school baseball, and I coached there for 4 years as their head varsity coach. We used the Phillies P as our logo. Now, this is purple. They're maroon, obviously, so we're a little off, but I figured what better hat to wear, represent the Phillies, than the Plano Reapers baseball hat. So here we go with that. Always trying to find a way to represent every team or make fun of every team. All right, so we're going to talk the Phillies, and I'll tell you what, David, going through these guys, what an intriguing team. This is definitely going to be an interesting episode. We got a lot to talk about here. There's a lot of different ways these Phillies can go. There's a lot of different things going on in Philadelphia. Some exciting, some not. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this one, no doubt. So good to have you on as always, David. Why don't you start us off? Give us that 2019 recap.
Well, so like you said, the Phillies are an interesting team. They kind of came in last year with really high expectations and fulfilled those expectations for about 2 months. They went into the All-Star break. I believe they were in first, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe just out of first. And then the injuries started piling up big time. And, man, they just kind of ran out of gas. They had a horrible September. And so like you said, the Phillies are going to be really interesting. They changed managers, which I think was warranted. I didn't think guy's name just slipped me.
Gabe Kapler?
Gabe Kapler really did a very good job. Now, having said that, like I said, he had to deal with some pretty major injuries. But Kapler is one of those guys, I think he's almost too smart for his own good. He definitely has some weird moves, that he makes and uses guys in weird spots. Now they're going to get the total opposite of that. So now they have Joe Girardi. As we've talked about before, I'm a pretty big Joe Girardi fan. But Joe Girardi's boring. He's never going to do anything that is out of the box ever. So the same guys will be pitching in the 9th, the 8th, the 7th. It's super annoying. You got to get like in Girardi's circle. And it's going to be complete polar opposite. But Girardi is I believe, is one of the best managers there is. We talked about this before. He took some terrible Yankee teams and kept them in the hunt. And so I think that's going to bode well for the Phillies.
So, man, Gabe Kapler, I'm not going to lie. That guy makes me laugh. And you talked about some of the moves he would make. I'm just going to be honest with you, man. I think the roids got to his head, man, because this guy was completely insane at times. And I'll tell you what, man, if I was one of those umpires when he came charging at me, I'd fear for my life because Gabe Kapler would squish my head like a grape if I were to try to fight that guy. But I don't like his baseball mind. If I'm not mistaken, he's with the Giants now, which good riddance, and go ahead and go to the Giants because I can't stand them guys. So what a perfect fit. But a great point on Girardi. This guy, like you said, he's very stale with the way he manages, but he's a no-nonsense guy, and he's going to get a lot out of those players, and he's not going to put up with egos, and Bryce Harper being one of the biggest egos in the game. So I think being as firm as he is, he may be able to turn this team into something good. So 81-81 last year. I mean, that's about as average as you can be, right in the middle. And when you look back on it, it makes total sense to be 500 like they were last year. Like you said, they started off really good and collapsed in September. Got overtaken by the Mets, who came out of nowhere really in the second half after all their troubles in the first half, and ended up in 4th place in the division. With all that talent and money spent is unbelievable to me. And it definitely cost Kapler his job and get out because – if he's going to manage a team like that, that's just talented. There's got to be a change.
Right.
So another thing too, Aaron Nola, 12-7 last year with the 3.87 ERA, which is okay. but he's your ace. You expect a little more out of him from last year. Didn't really get it. Everybody else this is the problem with their team last year. Everybody else had a losing record and an ERA in the 4 and 5s on their starting rotation. So there's the problem. So Zach Eflin, Jake Arrieta, Vince Velasquez, Drew Smiley, and Jason Vargas, congratulations on ruining 2019 for the Phillies. Awful. So I don't know where they turn the page. Here we go. 2020 strengths, David. What do you got, buddy?
Well, you have to go to their lineup and the depth of it. And I want to double back to Girardi again. Because I think this point is emphasized. Girardi has managed up-and-coming minor leaguers like the Marlins all those years, a couple years, and did a really good job, won Manager of the Year. And he's managed the big egos. A matter of fact, the biggest of the egos, A-Rod. And somehow, with the whole dynamic with him and Jeter, made that work. And so this is the perfect manager, I think, for this team and for Bryce Harper. But the biggest strength is got to be their lineup. Very deep, and they got some big names in there, some big hitters. Obviously, they have Bryce Harper, but they got Rhys Hoskins. You know, he's had a kind of a mediocre year last year. He had some power, but average was way down. JT Realmuto, probably the best catcher in baseball. Very, and he's in a walk year. And so, you know, that's the funny thing about the Phillies, to be honest with you. They're kind of a mishmash. So their window, you think, would be right now. But they're really not built that way. And so we'll talk about it later. I don't really know what to think about them, just to be honest with you, in a lot of respects. But their biggest strength to me is their lineup. It's deep. They got some good guys coming off the bench. Scott Kingery is a guy to watch out for. They've been talking about him for a long time, maybe being the next Whit Merrifield. And so that's interesting. Andrew McCutchen, I've always loved Andrew McCutchen. The little bit that he played with the Yankees, man, I was hoping they would re-sign him. It was really unfortunate that he went down last year. And so I'm going to say that their biggest strength is their lineup.
Could not agree more. I 100% agree, actually. This is a good lineup. They really are. They're built to win now. They're loaded with RBI guys. They can drive in a lot of runs. They can score a lot, which is what the game's all about, is outscoring your opponent. And they got a lot of guys who can mash. Bryce Harper was 35 and 114 last year in the home run and RBI department. Solid year from him. 260 average, which I think he should go up on. A 372 on base, which is phenomenal. He walks a lot. But the problem with him is he strikes out a lot too. Yeah. Harper struck out 178 times last year out of 682, which is 26% of the time. That's a lot. You know, when this guy can lift the ball and get a sac fly or just hit the ball hard and find a hole, he's got to cut down on the strikeouts a little bit. One of his problems in his career has actually been his strikeouts. Great player, great defensive player, rocket of an arm out there. Definitely their best player, their biggest strength. But like you were talking about too, McCutchen, I just hope he can return. I really like that guy. He's done a lot for this world as far as a lot of the outreaches that he has, a lot of good things that he's done for kids as well. Great guy, great human being. When you see him tear his ACL last year, very sad. This guy's hilarious, a great clubhouse guy, great teammate. I hope he can rebound, man, because if he can be out there every day in left field running around for these guys and helping them out, more power to him, and he can only help them. You know, he's a great player. Rhys Hoskins, you mentioned, 29 bombs, 85 ribbies, a 364 on base. So even with the low average, like you're talking, he got on base a lot. Because I don't like his average too much either. I don't have that in front of me, but not very good, like you were saying. And then JT, 25 and 83 out of a catcher with a 328 on base. He's a stud. You're not going to find many catchers better than him in the entire league, to be honest with you. And they've got a great cornerstone for that pitching staff to throw to. I love him defensively and offensively. I think he's solid. I think he is the best catcher in the league. So when you got all that going for your offense, definitely the strength for me as well.
Yeah. So I was looking at Rhys Hoskins, 226 last year. How in the world he ended up with a on-base like that. I mean, that's amazing when you're hitting 226. But DJ, let me ask you this: Bryce Harper. Nice season last year. Honestly, kind of a quietly nice season. And the reason it was quiet, I would say, is here's a guy that's making close to $40 million. So what's your opinion on Bryce Harper? Boom or bust? I mean, what do you think Bryce Harper is?
So I'm going to go boom, because in order to win in this league, you got to have players like him. So if this meshes well and the offense starts to roll and you got a Bryce Harper hitting in the middle of this lineup or at the top of this lineup, wherever Girardi decides to throw him, because it's a new manager. We haven't really seen where he's going to throw Harper yet. So if you're going to spend the money, and the Phillies have and will and have continued to do so, then I'm going boom. And it's really crazy. He gets a lot of heat for the fact that he left the Nationals and then the Nationals go on and win it all. That is always a tough situation to be in, especially when you're a superstar. You leave a team and they win the World Series without you, and then you're basically trying to do what your old team just did, and that's got to be a little frustrating for Bryce. And if he's being honest, that hurt him a little bit. I mean, who would it not hurt to see your team that you grew up with and they win it without you the first year you're gone? So that's got to hurt him a little bit, no doubt. But I'm going to go boom, man. This guy, anybody would love to have him. There were rumors of him coming to the Cubs. I would have loved to have him out there in right field. That would have been amazing. Obviously, it was a pipe dream, never happened, but I'm going to go boom on him. What do you think?
I think Bryce Harper is going to have a nice career, but I think they probably overpaid potentially by $15 or $20 million a year, easy. So last year his wins above replacement, 4.3, and to put that in perspective, Brett Gardner put up that much last year, and so. I think he was dealing with some injuries, and so I'm sure that brought down, the positives that he would have had in the field. But I do wonder a little bit about him. I wonder a little bit about his makeup. Obviously, I mean, you're hitting 35 homers and 114 RBIs or whatever. You're a great player, but I think this has potential. And the Yankees have been on the bad end of a lot of these contracts to really make them regret it down the road. Philadelphia is kind of a notorious place for having a rough media. So is Harper going to be able to handle that when the heat gets on? Because when you're making $40 million, that you want the clutch hits. You want 40 homers a year. What happens one year when and Harper's known to do this, 230 and 25 homers. That's not going to go over well in Philadelphia. So I guess I'm somewhere in between. I lean more towards boom. I like Harper. I'm not against him, but I just wonder if the weight of that contract is going to weigh him down in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we can talk about Bryce Harper for a long time. One of the most explosive players in the game. This guy plays hard. He does have his young moments where he won't run stuff out, which drives me absolutely insane. But a good majority of the time, he's out there hustling, giving everything he's got. And a lot of times it leads to his injuries when you play that way sometimes. But, he's definitely something that this team has got for the next, I don't know how many years they signed him for, but a ton. And he's going to be a cornerstone of this franchise. And hopefully they can put some pieces around him to make it even more of a great signing. So let's go with the 2020 weaknesses. What do you got for that for the Phils?
It's really obvious. It's the bullpen. So their setup man is already out for the year. Sir Anthony Dominguez. Neris had a nice year last year. He's penciled in as their closer. I'm not 100% believer in him, just to be honest. And then behind that, they picked up a lot of journeyman type guys. So Tommy Hunter's been good at times. Francisco Liriano is a great long man. I like Liriano really well. They picked up Bud Norris, who's had a year off due to injuries. Blake Parker's been a good pitcher. But that's not a bullpen that's built to win. Not to win now. They had some nice pieces. Jose Alvarez had a good year last year. Adam Morgan had a good year last year. but you don't see that lockdown 6, 7, 8, and 9 combo that you need to win in October. And so I'm going to go with the bullpen.
Yeah, when I was looking through this tonight, I'm going to go with the same thing, the bullpen. Since you mentioned that already and talked about it, I'm going to switch gears and go with a different route. Relying on Adam Hazley. Adam Hazley is going to be a starter on this team. So is Scott Kingery, and you mentioned him at the top of the show. If those guys are starters on this team, that's great. These guys are, pretty much rookies getting their first full-time action in this lineup. So 9 out of their 9 starting hitters, these are 2 of them, and these are guys that are not proven yet. Kingery, like you said, is supposed to be a stud. But if these guys fall off, they could lose their jobs, or they could be, the next guy like J.D. Drew who gets all these Philly fans throwing batteries at them. So they better start producing right away, because they're in a team that has a lot of power and a lot of potential in this lineup. I do like Kingery. I'm with you, man. I really think he's gonna do well. He was 19 homers, 55 ribbies, and a 315 as a young guy last year. So that's a pretty productive season out of him, pretty much as a rookie. But Adam Hazley was 5 homers, 26 ribbies with a 266 average. So not much out of him, maybe full time. That'll raise a little bit here as far as his production goes. But I'm going to go with those 2 guys as being their weaknesses until they prove that they can hit in this lineup. We'll see if they can even stay starters in this team. So.
Yeah. They have several shaky spots, and I guess that's what's going back to me talking about the Phillies window. It's strange. I mean, if they re-sign Real Muto, you won't feel the urgency. But if I'm Phillies front office, I'm feeling a little bit of urgency here, and they filled some holes, man. I like Didi Gregorius, for instance, at short. Big Didi fan. He's just a solid player. So they filled a hole there. But they also have some question marks really all over that team. Like you said, with Hazley, and the back end of the rotation's kind of shaky, and the bullpen, I think, is a mess. But they're interesting. They got some really talented players. I could see them making a run. It could really go either way.
Yeah, I agree. This is an intriguing team, like we talked about at the top. This is something I'm having a hard time figuring this team out, to be honest with you. And it'll be interesting to be able to watch them in the first week or 2 of the season and see how they jump out of the gate with this team that they've got, because it's one team that can go either way, and it's really hard to figure these guys out. So what are you going to say the best case scenario is for the 2020 Phillies?
Man, best case scenario is they fulfill the expectations. They make a run in the East. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, just to be honest with you. But that's what the Phillies believe they're built for. That's why they got a World Series manager like Joe Girardi, because they believe that they are built to make a run. And so if they get some guys clicking, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but I need to bring this up. Kind of a hallmark of all these teams that make a run is they kind of have a guy come out of nowhere. And the Phillies have that potential with their top prospect. He's a third baseman, Alec, and I can't remember his last name. I don't have it in front of me here. I was actually searching for it. Oh, here it is, Bohm. Alec Bohm. One of the top prospects in baseball. They got a potential hole at third. If I'm understanding correctly, Segura is going to start there, which he's a solid player. So what if Bohm comes up and he's as advertised? Man, then that lineup is stout. And so, best case scenario is they put it all together. The pitching finally comes all together. Zach Wheeler was a nice add. Sabermetrics loves Zach Wheeler. And so they got a pretty good 1-2 punch. And so best case scenario is they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with that too. Sneak a wild card. I don't see them winning the division. I really don't. I think they're going to be a potential playoff team. I believe that the National League East is the most stacked division in the National League. So you got 4 teams there that can win it if you really look at it. I think the Mets probably being the lowest of the 4, but they could even sneak in there too with some of the guys they got. So you got the defending champs, you got the Braves, you got a team like this Phillies, and you got the Mets. So there's 4 teams that are really solid in this division. And for them to sneak a wild card would be a very successful season for them. They have the talent to me. I really believe it. They could do it. They really can. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. But the pitching too, we're going to get into a little bit here. But that's another situation where they've got some guys that could step in there and be really good. They really do. In this rotation, it's kind of iffy at the end, but there's a lot of potential for them to catch them prospects at the end of this rotation, or some guys that have done it before to pick it back up again for them. So I definitely agree with you that they get into a wild card spot. So what about the worst case scenario?
Yeah, worst case scenario is Bryce Harper's hitting 225 with, very few homers. I don't know how many in a 60 game season is acceptable. But if Bryce Harper has one of those years, he's pretty much famous for good then bad, good then bad, good then bad. So if Harper has one of those years like that, Nola's mediocre again. The bullpen can't close things out. I think there's a real good chance this is a fourth place team again. I believe that. I think they're better than they were last year, 81 and 81. But I think they definitely have the potential to be 500 ball again. I think it's totally there. And so that's what I would say worst case scenario is for them. And the Phillies, they need to figure out what direction they're going. Obviously, they've been spending some money, and so they don't plan on any sort of rebuild and that kind of thing. But Real Muto is a free agent. Do you cash out on him if you're out of it? Try to get some prospects. Do you try to just hang on and re-sign him? So they got a lot of questions that potentially need to be answered. But worst case scenario, I can't see them being any worse than about a 500 team.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to be right around that area at the worst again. Fourth place finish could easily happen in this division again, and that definitely is a worst case scenario because I think they hit it last year with the expectations that are there in Philly now, that these fans are wanting this team to win now, and getting Girardi will change that, I believe. But that would be just a catastrophe to fall back into fourth place again, which is the worst place they could possibly go in. I got them finishing third. To be honest with you, I think that they're going to be a third-place team behind the Braves and the Nats. I just don't think that they've got what it takes to win this division, but they could possibly sneak in there at the end. So I couldn't agree with you more with that being the case. So
I totally agree. I think they'll hop the Mets.
Yep.
I do think they'll hop the Mets. Syndergaard going down, really hurt the Mets' chances.
Yep.
So I do think they will hop the Mets, but man, I just can't see them hopping the Nats. They're just too good. And the Braves, man, very tough there too. So I'm gonna say they're a third place team.
I agree. I really agree with that 100%. Third place is where I got them. So, all right, let's go with some position battles. David, what do you got for the position battles and what this team could possibly do here?
Well, I kind of already touched on a couple of them. Third base is a place that they could potentially improve with their top prospect kind of waiting in the wings. And then the bullpen, they need that to shake out somehow, some way. And like I said, they've got some veterans who have done it. Tommy Hunter, I really like Tommy Hunter. He just cannot stay healthy for whatever reason. And they got some interesting arms. I like Liriano. Liriano, as a long guy, he's hard to beat, man. The Astros proved that a couple years back. He's hard to beat in that role. And so position battles, I'm going to go with third base and then the bullpen.
Yeah, good points. So I'll go with fifth starter here. There's a lot going on with the fifth spot in the rotation, from Velasquez to Pivetta to Spencer Howard, who is one of their top prospects too. So these three right there, Nick Pivetta, Vince Velasquez, and Spencer Howard, there are three guys going for this fifth spot there in the rotation. And the good thing I feel about this is that one of those guys is going to win that, and two of those guys are going to go back into that bullpen, which is going to help them, which, like you said, is their weakness. But when you look at it from the perspective of two of those guys strengthen your bullpen when they don't win a rotation spot, it kind of helps that out a little bit, to be honest with you. So I'm going to say fifth. It'll be interesting because Girardi, like you said, he doesn't play favorites. Whoever wins that fifth spot's probably going to keep it because he doesn't change much like you said, he sticks with when he gets his vision and this lineup that he makes for the year, unless you go down injured or you're completely falling off a cliff, he's not going to change it much. So
Yeah.
whoever wins that fifth spot's going to be there probably, I believe, all season.
DJ, did Gene Segura play some outfield? I'm thinking maybe with the Mariners or something like that. You think there's any chance if their prospect comes up, hits at third, that maybe he comes to center field? Is that an option, you think?
Yeah, well, Adam Hazley's going to play center, and like you said, he's not really proven too much. So if he falls off, you could do that. Or if McCutchen's not feeling good, which I hope he is, and I hope he can stay healthy all year long. Hopefully the 60-game season helps him being, a little older now, and maybe he can handle this kind of season and not get hurt. So yeah, I can see that definitely being a spot for him to move out there and be that guy to do that. So yeah, he's versatile. He could do that. He's a good little ball player. I like him a lot. He was real good with the Mariners and the Brewers there for a little bit too. So I think he's definitely a guy. That's a good point. He could definitely do that. So
you think Jay Bruce is the DH?
Yeah, that's what I've been reading is Jay Bruce is the DH of this team. And, man, you kind of forgot about Jay Bruce, to be honest with you. I almost forgot he was still in the league, to be honest with you. But this guy quietly hits, 20, 25 bombs every year and drives in some runs. So, I mean, if that guy's hitting DH for you, that's not the worst thing in the world. And, I like him a lot. I always thought he was a really good ball player with the Reds and maybe getting a little older now, but he still probably can hit the ball. So all he's got to do is hit the ball now. He doesn't have to worry about playing the field, so that probably help him.
Yeah, he's had a quietly nice career. 312 career home runs. He hit 26 last year. Wow. And the shocking thing is, it seems like he's been around 100 years. He's only 33, which doesn't seem that old. I mean, he's obviously at the tail end of his career probably, but 5 more years. And then we're talking about if he hit 25 a year, 5 more years, we're talking about a guy who's, up there close to 500 homers, which is kind of crazy. So
I would have never guessed he was 33, David. I would have guessed 36.
I'm right there with you. I would have thought 36, 37. But yeah, he's just quietly put together a really nice career. So
man, good call on Jay Bruce.
What was that?
I said good call on Jay Bruce.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Like I said, I was just doing some research today, and he's had a nice career.
All right, so this team lost a few names from last year. Jason Vargas, Pat Neshek, Jared Hughes, Cesar Hernandez, Maikel Franco, Drew Smiley, Logan Morrison. Any of those names scare you that they lost?
Well, and I only know this because I had him on my fantasy team. I had a fantasy emergency and needed a second baseman last year. And, Cesar Hernandez had a really nice year last year. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm thinking about 70 or 80 RBIs out of your second baseman. Pretty hard to beat. And, while they have guys to play there, that's going to be hard to replace, whether it's Scott Kingery or however you want to look at that, Didi Gregorius. Those are going to be some shoes to fill. So I'm going to go with Cesar Hernandez.
Yeah, Maikel Franco's had a pretty good career so far. He drives me nuts, though, the way he plays, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the way he plays. Girardi would hate him, just being honest with you. From a coaching standpoint, not a kind of guy that I would want I would want him on my team for the production, but everything else that goes with him, it might be best that he moved on. So that's a good point about Hernandez, man. When you think about him having 70 ribbies last year, and he kind of quietly left. He's kind of quietly just out of the picture now, and they've kind of kicked them guys to the curb so these young guys can get their chance now. So it's time for them to produce, and I think you're right about that. He's the guy that Girardi's probably going to miss the most out of these guys that left. So on the additions, this one's going to be kind of easy. Zach Wheeler, Didi Gregorius, and Tommy Hunter. Which guy from there?
Well, I like all 3 of those guys, to be honest with you. But it's got to be Zach Wheeler. Yeah. He's got ace stuff. That contract actually has potential. I'm not saying it is a bargain, but it has potential to be a bargain because, again, according to the sabermetrics, he has ace caliber stuff. And now he's going to have a little bit better team around him as well. The Mets, for most of the time he's been there, have not been very good. Now, they made a run last year. So now he's going to have potentially a little bit better team around him. And so if he were to take that next step forward, I think the Harper contract's a bad one. Wheeler might be a good one.
Yeah, here's a guy, and when he signed for the money that he did, I kind of scratched my head a little bit. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the White Sox offered him more money and he turned them down, which made me laugh. It made me very happy that he was going to the Phillies instead of jumping to the White Sox. I was like, I love you even more, Zach Wheeler. But, he signed a 5-year, $118 million contract. Pretty studly for him. Good for him. 44-38 in his career with a 3.77 ERA, 726 Ks and 749 innings. So he's almost a K per inning guy. So he can strike you out, no doubt. And let me tell you, man, I love this signing. I really do. I think the Phillies needed a guy like this really bad to go in their rotation. Aaron Nola's a dog. We know that. He's a stud. He's going to be a top of the order guy. He won't have the season he had last year. I truly believe he's going to turn the pages and be better. Then you got Wheeler. You got Jake Arrieta, who's a little forgotten in this mix. Now, Jake signed a big contract too, and he hasn't lived up to it with the Phillies. But let me tell you, man, if this guy finds his groove like he did with the Cubs, you're talking about a guy who's one of the best in baseball, to be honest with you. And I would love to see Jake Arrieta, just from the love that I have for that guy, just turn it around and be a stud. And if you got those three at the top, and Zach Eflin's is good too, man. So you got 4 solid pitchers. And then the 5th guy really could be really solid too, man. I am starting to like this rotation a lot better than I did last year. And I think the Phillies made great moves in shoring up that rotation with signing Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, I totally agree. Arrieta, that's kind of been it was shocking when he got good, and it was shocking he got as good as he got. And then it's been shocking to see him kind of just slowly fade. And so, it makes you wonder, what's going on there. Is he injured or what's going on? But like you said, if Arrieta could turn it around, I mean, he's still a very capable number 4 starter, probably. But if he could somehow come back to even just be a 2 or a 3, man, like you said, they would be tough to beat in a short series for sure.
Yeah, I really hope he does. That was one of the greatest trades that the Cubs ever made, stealing him and Pedro Strop from the Orioles, man. We completely stole them guys. And, those guys led us to a championship, to be honest with you. Pedro Strop was awesome in the bullpen. So I hope Arrieta does turn it around for these Phillies. He kind of struggled a lot last year and the year before with them. And if he can come back, this rotation is going to be even more solid. And speaking of solid, how about the help from the farm? What do you got for your main prospect you want to talk about tonight?
So again, I've already touched on Alec Boehm, one of the top prospects in baseball. I'm trying to pull up my list here. I was going to go with the pitcher as well, Spencer, and I don't have his last name. I can't get it pulled up here.
Spencer.
But he was one of their top picks, I believe, 2 years ago. And he's a guy that they need. Again, all these teams that are successful and that make runs, they have the same thing in common. Some of these prospects come up and hit or pitch out of nowhere. So, again, we've just talked about their rotation. Well, what if he comes up and is a stud? Like a lot of people are projecting him to be. We know by what we just talked about that the Phillies aren't that far away. I believe they're missing pieces, but they're not that far away. And so if either of those guys were to come up and break out, it could push the Phillies over.
Yeah, I agree. Spencer Howard to me is the guy. 6'3", 205. He's 23 years old. I believe they should call him up this year, if not to help in the rotation, to certainly help that bullpen we were talking about early. He's a righty with 281 Ks and 211 innings. I'll say that again, 281 Ks in 211 innings. That's solid. 13-10 record, upper 90s fastball with a slider that is nasty and a curveball. So if he can throw a nasty slider in the big leagues, you can survive for a long time. If he's the 5th guy in this rotation, I'm okay with that. I think that's a good thing to have, is catch lightning in a bottle and the young prospect. You're so right about you needing some guys like this to win. So I think he's going to be up right away and help them one way or the other.
And I want to throw another guy's name in here. I got the prospects list pulled back up here. There's a guy named Eniel De Los Santos. They rank him right now as their number 8 prospect. He's been a starter, but according to the scouting report that I've read, they've known that he could contribute right now as a reliever. Upper 90s fastball, wipeout slider, and the Phillies, they need either a closer or a setup man, one of the two. I don't personally believe Neris is capable of being a playoff closer. And so maybe a guy like this comes up out of nowhere, or whether it's Spencer Howard. But they have some guys, looking over their farm system, they have some guys that can be there now. And they really need some in that bullpen. So it'll be interesting to see if any of them step up.
It'll be interesting to see how it's managed. The managing this year, I think Shelton was talking about it a little bit when we talked to him. Or maybe that was Howard that said the managing was going to be more important this year than it is in a 162 game, and I truly believe that because you're so tight and every game matters. And if you're not managing the game correctly and you cost your team a few games as a manager, that's going to hurt. It doesn't hurt as much when you're in 162 games. You can rebound from those kind of things. You're not going to be able to rebound from it for this year. So you got to be a strong manager. You got to know when to put the right guys in the right spots. And like I said, David, you're completely right about the bullpen being one of the weaknesses, but these guys can fill it in, the guys who aren't going to be starters, and you pull a couple prospects up, and if this happens, then these guys are solid because I love their rotation now. And if you throw those guys in the bullpen, you're pretty solid. And all of a sudden the big problem doesn't look as bad. So that's what's so intriguing about these guys is they could go one way or another. They got the potential to do it, or they could fall on their faces, no doubt. So,
yep.
All right. Well, you got some trivia for me for the Phillies?
All right. Let's see here. Yep, I do. Give me just a second. I came very unprepared. I left my notes at work. This is a good one. You know how everything to me comes back to the Yankees. This is a good one. All right. If you get this.
Thanks for the clue.
I'm going to be excited. This left-handed starting pitcher, his first stint with the Phillies began in '89 when he came to Philadelphia in a trade with the Giants. In 1993, this is crazy to me, he started the All-Star game and pitched in the World Series, but was traded to the Yankees in the offseason. He pitched for the Phillies again in '96, but was traded to the Mariners that July. Who do you think that was? Left-handed pitcher, started the All-Star game and the World Series in '93, traded to the Yankees in the offseason.
Wow. Was that Al Leiter?
Nope. Terry Mulholland.
Terry Mulholland. Oh, man.
Terry Mulholland started an All-Star game. How crazy is that? I had no idea. He was a complete bust with the Yankees. He was awful. And anyway, Terry Mulholland.
Terry Mulholland pitched with the Yankees, huh? I'd have missed that. I know he was a Cub for a little while there too, but I never thought – I don't even – to be honest with you, that 93 Blue Jays team we're actually going to bring up a little bit here with talking about the Phillies a little bit more later, but that 93 Blue Jays team, I don't remember him on there either. What a team that was. Holy smokes. And for him to be – wow, you got me on that one, man. Al Leiter kept popping in my head. Did he pitch for the Yankees a little bit too, Leiter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And actually his brother, Mark Leiter, who also pitched for the Phillies, if I'm not mistaken, he was a Yankees prospect that they traded maybe for Mulholland. I don't even know, but it was around that time.
Man, that was a good one. I completely – wow, I don't think if I would have had 10 tries on that, I would have got it. I think if you'd have gave me 4 options, I would have made him the 4th one, to be honest with you.
Well,
I remember him being a Blue Jay.
4 options, and I knew with the options that they gave me, you would have gotten it because one of them was Mitch Williams. We knew it wasn't him. The other was Kurt Schilling. He's right-handed, and Dennis Cook, who's also right-handed.
Okay.
So I knew you would have got it had I given you the options.
Okay, well, I would have got it in that format. So yeah, there's no doubt about that. That was a tough one, man. That's good. I'm not gonna go as tough as you did there, but so who was the Phillies closer in the 1993 World Series that gave up the walk-off bomb to Joe Carter?
You just made fun of me for closer questions. I just want to throw that out there. 93 closer.
For the Phillies, he gave up the infamous bomb to Joe Carter in walk-off, where Joe Carter jumped so high he hit the top of the Sky Dome with his head. One of the great moments in MLB history. Who was pitching?
I feel like if I thought about this for a while, I could get this. I'm definitely about ready to miss it.
I'm not gonna let you miss this. You're gonna miss it on your own, and I'm gonna help you out a little bit.
Help me out.
Nicknamed the Wild Thing.
Yeah, Mitch Williams.
Yep.
I would have got that. It just would have. I actually just mentioned his name.
You did too. Yeah, that's what. When you mentioned his name, I was like, he's gonna get my trivia question now.
I totally should have got that. It was like just a block. I don't know.
So David, here's the thing, man. Mitch Williams was a Cub in the late '80s, and
I remember that.
I'm telling you, man. I kid you not. I've been watching a lot of old games. I've been telling you this already, of the old Cub games, because there's nothing else to do. So, you watch Mitch Williams come out and close for the Cubs. That guy literally would walk the bases loaded and then strike out the next three batters. It was like your heart's doing this the whole time, and he gets out of it somehow every time, man.
I would have hated having Mitch Williams as my closer. I bet Sabermetrics hated Mitch. I need to look. That'll make a good study, but my gosh.
It's so bad. So I have a cousin who is actually named Mitch Williams. That's his first name and his middle name for Mitch Williams back in the
no
80s
way.
Cubs. Yeah, absolutely. So
That's awesome.
we're a big Cubs family, and my uncle was all over that one. So so
That's
cool,
awesome.
man. So cool. But yeah, he gave up that bomb. I can still see him to this day. He let that pitch go, and Mitch followed through. As soon as Carter hit that ball, man, I felt so bad for him because I loved Mitch Williams, man. I really did. He'd scare you to death, and the Cubs had a lot of great closers in the day, but he was the one that would scare you the most and then just somehow get out of everything. I don't know how he did it, but
Crazy. That was a good one, though. That was a really good one. That's a great baseball moment, one of the best ones.
It really was. And those Blue Jays teams, man, when you actually give them a little love and look back at the teams they had in 92 and 93, there's no doubt why they won both those back-to-back when you look at those teams. Just absolutely stacked with some gamers. So,
yeah.
All right, so let's shift gears to the stadiums now. So, Veterans Stadium for the Phillies from 1971 to 2003, and then Citizens Bank from 2004 to the present. Have you been to either one of those?
So I've never been to either one. Veteran Stadium, that was one of those cookie-cutter ballparks like Three Rivers and Riverfront. It was pretty crappy. But, from what I have looked at online, I wanted to look because I've watched a little bit of the Phillies, and it looks like a cool stadium. I really want to visit Citizens Bank. They got something I think is the coolest thing. They have a wiffle ball field complete with Major League class dugouts. Now, how cool, if you were a little kid, would that be? That would be the bomb. But, it's one of those downtown parks. I think it looks awesome. So, have you been?
No, I have not. So, I'm curious, how far is that from your house?
Probably about 6 hours.
Okay, so that's not too bad. That's definitely within driving distance.
Sure.
So, that's hilarious you bring that. Can we play on that wiffle ball field? Because I promise I would want to strike you out on that.
We definitely will be playing on that wiffle ball field for sure. And Matt Kearns, if you're watching this, you got to come to me and Matt. Now, I'm gonna tell you this story. He lived about half mile from me. You could see my house from his house, but there was like a little swamp in between. Basically, we had a one-on-one wiffle ball league. It was me, him, and his cousin who was a girl, and so we used to write out lineups. That's when the Yankees were terrible. But, man, I always wanted to be the Yankees. He was always the Blue Jays, and she was always the Reds. But, Kearns, we got to relive some of those old memories and play some wiffle ball at Citizens Bank. That's got to happen.
I will strike you out, David. I got some nasty pitches in wiffle ball. I'll make you look sick.
All right, I'm ready.
No, but to be honest, like we grew up in the city, obviously, so you can't play hardball in a lot of spots, you can, if you're lucky enough to get on the high school field, you can do it. But we played a ton of wiffle ball, and to be honest with you, a ton of tennis ball when we were kids.
Mm,
Because you could hit a tennis ball a little farther, and it was a lot more fun coming off the bat. You could use your metal bat to hit a tennis ball, and just some of the best memories we possibly have growing up, is playing wiffle ball. And to this day, I tell you what, I got a pretty nice sized lot in my backyard. So, man, me and Lindsay go in the back, and sometimes Devin, and we hit this mess out of wiffle balls in the backyard, and it's
nice.
still fun, man. It's a lot of fun. So I would be very very much into going to that, just to, if not for anything, just to play some wiffle ball.
Absolutely. They rank that as the most kid-friendly park in all of baseball. So we might actually have to take the kids, unfortunately, on that one. Maybe, I don't know.
You know what, man? I was actually thinking about this today. I'm like, next trip we make, we might have to take the kids with us too, because you know our kids, which is really cool to me. When we got to see you guys a few years back, man, our kids clicked right away.
Oh yeah,
That was really awesome to see. And Lindsay's Devin still talk about them to this day and how much fun that was. And I'm pretty sure that if we saw each other again, they'd pick right back up where they
absolutely.
left off. And it'd be really cool to go as families to any of these ballparks and check it out. But then, what else? Do you know anything else about that? I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know very much about the stadium. Obviously, it's up there for me too. I really want to see it. But Pennsylvania is a long state and a long drive for me, but I'd be willing to do it.
So how far is it?
I don't even know, to be honest with you. If it's 6 hours past you, it's got to be about 12, 10, something like that.
You're getting up there close to New York. So, like you said, Pennsylvania is a long state.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just talked about how kid friendly it was. They got a 13,000 square foot kids area there, and it's got some of the stuff that you would normally have, radar guns and that kind of thing. But like I said, the park looks like they've modeled it. Camden Yards was the first, downtown park with the brick and all that, and it looks like they've done the same thing. But it was interesting to me.
Yeah, it definitely looks good. It's one of the cities that I've never been to be honest with you. There's a lot to do in Philadelphia that I'd like to see. A lot of history there. That would be another fun thing too. Is I'm a big history buff, so up in that area too is a lot of stuff history wise, and
Yeah.
a lot of stuff to do in Philadelphia. So that'd be a blast to go up there and check out a game, obviously, and do some other things as a family. A lot of fun.
Absolutely. So who's your all-time favorite Philly, DJ? I got to hear this. This is going to be good.
Okay, man. So this one's been easy for me. I absolutely love John Kruk.
Yes! West Virginia. That a boy.
What? Is he really?
Yeah, he's from Charleston.
Are you kidding me? No way.
Dead serious. Matter of fact, crazy story. I played All-Stars one year in Charleston, and we got to play against his nephew's team. Corey Kruk was his name. And he was good back then when we were 12. I don't know if he ever made anything out of himself, but yeah, you gotta love you some John Kruk, and he is by far the best announcer on Baseball Tonight, in my opinion.
I absolutely love. I would hang out with that guy, man. What a great guy. I just love. He cracks me up, man. I have like some of the best memories of John Kruk, man. I was looking back at his stats today. I'm going to ask you this and what you think. Without looking, how many career home runs did John Kruk have?
No, it's not very many. I'm
No,
going to say 95.
you are like smack on, man. He hit 100.
Wow.
So he hit 100 on the nose, and I promise you he doesn't let anybody forget that because he didn't hit 99. He hit 100.
I just remember Kruk was a really good contact hitter.
Yes.
His thing was putting the bat on the ball. But he never was a real prolific power hitter.
So David, do you remember Chris Farley doing John Kruk on Saturday Night Live?
No, I've never been a Saturday Night Live guy. I bet it's hilarious though, because I love Farley.
Farley is the man, and I don't like Saturday Night Live anymore. I think it's terrible now. But back when they had Farley and those guys, it was a lot more fun to watch. And there's a skit on there. You gotta look it up. And Chris Farley does John Kruk perfect. And the guy's asking him, he's like, John, aren't you supposed to be somewhere right now? And this is in '93, in October of '93. So obviously he's supposed to be in the World Series against the Blue Jays. And Chris Farley, he gets up and you gotta look that one up, man. It's a real quick one, but Chris
I'll
Farley
check
can
that
pull
out.
off John Krug really well, man. So, and one of the best moments in baseball is when, to me, we talked about Bob Gibson being the guy from the right-hand side, and I would at least like to face Randy Johnson and Bob Gibson if you give me two guys. But
Yeah.
you imagine Randy Johnson throwing the ball over his head like Kruk did, and Kruk taking those swings. My gosh, that was just awesome.
Randy Johnson was a scary dude back in the day. I actually watched one of his recent games. I don't remember how many struck out. It was way up there. But, man, he was just a mean-looking dude, man. And you know that if he didn't have very good control either, that was pretty well known. And so you had a very good chance of getting hit with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And if I'm John Kruk, I'd have had trouble getting back in the box. That was awesome.
So he had John Kruk had about 4 stud years, you would say, from the home run RBI production standpoint. And I'm looking at his numbers and I'm going, oh, but then you look at the batting average and then you go, oh, that's right. This is why this guy was so good. He had, I believe, 9 of his 10 seasons. There was one year with the Padres, his second or third year, where he didn't hit over 300. Every other year he hit over 300. Man, was that guy just a hitter. And you forget that because his body, man, he looks like he gives every slow pitch softball guy a dream of making the major leagues.
He's definitely not lifting any weights. That's for sure. That's why the power never came. It wasn't happening.
That guy does not look like a major league ball player, man. He really does not. Not an ounce of that guy's body looks anything like him. And look at those 93 Phillies, man. Look at the guys that got by with. Darren Dalton was just a gamer.
Yep.
Got Lenny Dykstra. Maybe Mickey Morandini was not on that team. He might have been.
I think Morandini was on that team. I might be wrong.
But just dirtbags is a good name for those guys. Like just those kind of players that just absolutely somehow make it to the World Series, And I definitely, for that, need John Kruk. Some of the other guys, Kurt Schilling, Cole Hamels, guys like that. You also were Philly guys that were up there. Darren Dalton, I guess I just mentioned. But what's your guy?
Well, this was tougher than I thought. I went back and looked through and think about Roy Halladay. You think about Ryan Howard. I always really liked Ryan Howard. And DJ, I'm a little disappointed because Pat Burrell was definitely your favorite guy. I was waiting on you to say, when you are so overtaken with emotion that you can't even speak to the man. So, DJ, I'll just go ahead and tell the story for those of you who don't know it. We went to a spring training game when we were at Tennessee Temple, and we were me and DJ especially, were walking on air, man, because, we got to be close to these players. We're the biggest fans ever. So, at the time, their top prospect was Brandon Duckworth. And so out walks Brandon Duckworth. Me and DJ are both getting that ball signed. We're like 12-year-old boys. We think it's the coolest thing. And then right behind him walks Pat the Bat Burrell, who, at the time was good for about 40 bombs a year. And so he walks out. Everybody starts hollering and screaming. And poor old DJ there holding his ball. Mr. Burrell, Mr. Burrell. And he turned around and said, he didn't hear me. And I was like, yeah, he didn't hear you. You didn't yell at him. So I'm really shocked that Pat Burrell wasn't your guy.
So I kid you not, man. I was talking to Nicole. I said, we're doing the Phillies tonight. How long do you think it's going to take David to bring up Pat Burrell?
I was saving that one, man. And honestly, I almost forgot until we started talking about my favorite players because, it hit me about Pat Burrell. So couldn't let that go.
But Brandon Duckworth's autograph somewhere. It's probably worth 14 cents.
Yeah, maybe. You're hoping he becomes a good coach or something, or something else. But my favorite player would have to be Chase Utley, man. I always really liked Chase Utley. Again, that's a guy course, the Yankees had a good second baseman at that time, but he was a guy that I always wanted the Yankees to get. Even later in his career when he played with the Dodgers, he was fighting injuries and that kind of thing, but he was always a tough out. He played with class. I'm a big Chase Utley fan.
Yeah, Chase Utley is one of the faces of the franchise all time right there. That guy, man, is he just a stud, absolute stud. And he don't say much. He's kind of a quiet guy. But, man, he's just an absolute beast. And one of the, let's just say, top 50 second baseman of all time, really. I mean, when you think about it, he could be even better than that when you look at the stats. But just his numbers are going to jump out at you for a second baseman. And it'll be interesting, David, to see his Hall of Fame credentials when it comes that time, because he's going to be right there with some of these greats that have played second base. And it'll be really interesting to see where he fits in that mix.
Yeah, it will be. I haven't done a real study on his stats, but I've thought that before. For a second baseman, it's a position not known for a lot of hitting. I'm going to say he's probably out in my book as much as I like him. But, so a lot of times you go back and look at those
already.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you go back and look at those stats, but you think about guys who've recently gotten into the Hall of Fame, played second base. Roberto Alomar. Is Chase Utley in the same class as Roberto Alomar? Nope. He's not. And I love Chase Utley. But like I said, that would be an interesting study to go back and look at those stats and compare him. You're putting him in, aren't you?
I don't know, man. I've thought about this. This is going to be a tough one. When he gets up there, we're going to have to take a serious look at everything that he's done in this game. You're not going to be able to brush him off. I promise you that. You're not going to be able to throw him right out.
You're right. I agree with you. Let's pull him up here real quick.
Yeah, I got to hear this, man, because it's kind of interesting to me, because I cannot believe Jeff Kent isn't in the Hall of Fame. And Jeff Kent's statistically one of the greatest second basemen of all time.
Again, okay, so you just mentioned the guy. Is Chase Utley in the same breath as Jeff Kent?
No, I think Jeff Kent's better than him career numbers wise, and Kent ain't even close.
That's
right. The problem with all this.
So what's going to hurt Chase Utley really bad is he only played 15 years. And so when you're talking about key numbers, he only had 1,800 hits. That's a problem. He had 259 home runs. And while he had some good seasons, 4 seasons with more than 100 RBIs, and they were right in the same time. That's why it's so easy to have a rosy picture of Chase Utley. 33 homers, 22 homers, 33 homers, 28 homers, 31 homers. That's 5 seasons. But after that, 16, 11, 11, 18, 11, 8, 14. So while he had a really great career, he just doesn't have – he just doesn't cut it. For me, 2,500 hits is for a guy like Chase Utley is about minimum. And again, it's not his fault. He was injured. Great player. I love to watch him, but not worthy of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, those numbers you're throwing at me don't really stand out. I agree with that. But, man, it must have been a lot of injuries, because it just seems like it would have been more than 1,800 hits. That's kind of disappointing to me, to be honest with you. I thought for sure he was in the 2000s. If you'd have told me Chase Utley does not have 2,000 hits, I would have told you were crazy, because I thought it for sure he had over 2,000, and I would have taken that bet that he did. So
I'm with you.
Maybe not even close. But what a great career nonetheless. He's probably like me. You talk about a little bit. Put him in the Hall of Good, because
exactly. The thing is you don't want to forget about players like him.
Yeah, you're true.
But this ranks him, and I like looking at this stuff as he had 64 career WAR, which is good. 60 is kind of the baseline, they say, for a Hall of Famer. And they have him ranked as the 11th best second baseman. But if you're not letting Jeff Kent in, there's no way you're putting Chase Utley in.
No, Jeff Kent's got to get in first before Utley even thinks about it. And here's another thing, too. With the second base position, second baseman's a lot like the punter in football, kind of forgotten about a lot. And there's not much, greatness in the second base position. Let's just be honest, And if Jeff Kent, I cannot believe Jeff Kent is not a Hall of Famer. It blows my mind to no end. This is one of the greatest second basemen of all time statistically. So Nobody can fight me on that. If you fight me on that, you're completely wrong. So if he's not in, then I don't know how Chase Utley gets in, and that's the
No.
problem with Chase's case, and it's going to be tough for him until guys like Kent get in.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I agree with you on Jeff Kent. He should be in the Hall.
All right, so David, former teammates of ours that were Phillies fans. Give me one. I'll give you the other.
All right, I'm going to go with Paul Peoples. Paul, whose best friend was Alex Rodriguez. He had him on the phone several times. They played together at whatever that high school was. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with Paul Peoples.
Paul Peoples, yeah. He played with A-Rod, didn't he?
And that, yeah. So give me the second one. Who was the second one?
I'm sorry, man, but you got some storytelling. That, to me, was just
Bizarre.
bizarre. So Shelton was talking about how we played with guys that were here, and we played with guys that were here.
Yeah.
I'll
And
leave it at that.
The problem was with some of these guys is they believed they were here. And if they couldn't prove it on the field, then names like A-Rod got dropped. And so that's what happened in that case. But, Paul, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
Paul, if you are watching this, I would like to know if you're still alive because I can't find you on anything or anything. Oh man, whatever. But Ray Elcher is the second guy. I'm not 100% sure. This guy maybe had a cup of coffee with us, to be honest with you.
One fall.
Paul, yeah, that's right. He didn't even make the spring team. So he was from up in the Philadelphia area. I do know that for a fact. So I would assume he's a Phillies fan, but I don't know. But I just want to give him a little love because that's kind of obviously be the only shot he's going to get on this show is to assume he was a Phillies fan.
Ray was a pretty good ball player.
Yeah.
He if he'd have stuck around, he definitely would have got some PT, I feel like.
He's a pitcher, right?
He was. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was kind of like a knuckleballer. So anyway, I definitely remember, he played middle infield, if I'm not mistaken, second base, shortstop, and was a pitcher. And anyway, don't know whatever happened to him. Never heard from him after that.
No, I have no clue if he's even alive either, to be honest with you. Just can't find him or haven't talked to him since 1998, so I have no clue anything about him or what he's doing in life. But, yeah, I mean, when he arrived, we could use all the arms we could get, obviously, and we did have a ton at that time. But, he could have helped us if he stuck around for the fall a little bit and maybe got an inning or two here and there, anything to help out. Maybe be that guy that when you're down 13-2, you just throw him in there and, hey, just get this game over with.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right. Well, David, unless you've got something to add to the Phillies, speak now or forever hold your peace.
No, it's going to be interesting to watch the Phillies. One of the most interesting teams we've done so far. So I'm interested to see how it plays out.
I agree. I can't figure this team out, so I'm going to be very intrigued by watching them for the first couple weeks to see which way they're going to go. They got the talent to do it. I feel like this team's heading in the right direction. If they have another off season like they have the last few, really think that this team's going to be very close in the next few years. So if the Phillies can keep up this pace, we could see them winning it all if they keep up with the free agent spike that they've been doing. So we'll see.
Yep. I agree.
All right, David. Well, once again, man, it was a lot of fun. We will get these posted as soon as we can, and the 2020 Phillies are going to be an interesting one for us all. So once again, thanks to our 14 fans that we have out there. We appreciate you watching, and we will talk to you all soon.